Well, we've had an interesting last few days, especially after Alberto had passed through that tropical storm, dumped a bunch of rain that was much needed. But the storm surge from that has really pushed a lot of water. So if you've been on the water since then, or maybe a day or two before Alberto came through, you've noticed that lots of water has pushed in. Lots of it, I mean, just bunch of water. So we primarily this past week have focused really primarily on back lakes with that amount of water in there. So, we probably had an extra 2 foot of water here in these areas, in lots of areas, from Baffin all the way up here to San Antonio, and I'm sure it was up and down the shoreline, the coast. But specifically in our area here, we get back in here in the San Antonio Bay, we get here in Shell Reef Bayou, Cottonwood Bayou, all these back lakes, man. Big Brundit, Little Brundit, and all those areas there as well back up in here have all lit up. And of course, the one thing that has happened with that too, it has changed how things look because of that amount of water. So it kind of was interesting to find some of the cuts because everything looked like there was just big old flat everywhere. So there wasn't a whole lot of definition in some of these. So you kind of had to proceed carefully to locate and get into your cuts and get through without running up on ground somewhere. So once we got that kind of done and established and took care of so we could get back in here and work, lots of these fish are pushed up into the grass because there is so much water in here. So that was our primary focus and goal, is to work grass line edges, mangrove edges, and that's where we found the majority of our fish. Ever so often we'd find one a little pushed off the shoreline out in the middle to somewhere to that degree like that, but it's just amazing how much water has pushed in here. So if you didn't get a chance to fish during that time frame, now that water's kind of gradually receding a little bit, so we'll keep an eye on that over the next few days. We're on the back side of the full moon, so the moon phases there on the moon set and the moon rise, if you had a chance to fish those, was pretty good for the most part. Wasn't spectacular, but it was solid. Primarily fished the moon set, didn't fish any of the moon rises, just simply because of the coastal flooding that is going on. So again, it just changes everything about your fishing. So I do like extra water in here, but not quite that much, because all that does is once you push that much water in your system, these fish really can scatter out. So it takes a while to locate and kind of refigure them, because once you got your normal tides that are rolling in here, just your normal stuff, day in and day out, you can find that pattern. You can find where those fish are kind of hanging out, and that pattern will repeat itself. But when you got this kind of water in here, it changes everything, man. You got to really buckle down and pay attention to what your techniques are and what your pattern is, if it reveals itself to you early or late. So anyhow, being around the big moon, we were throwing smaller profile, working the grass line edges. We were throwing burner shad primarily in that moon set. And as we transitioned into the daytime, into that midday, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock time frame, just stuck with the smaller profile, soft dines, mirror lure, little johns, the knock and tail, again, the burner shad in the original down south. The marker 54 jerk shrimp has been pretty good as well. And then a few other baits just kind of obscurely we've kind of thrown some topwater. But the one thing we've had a little issue with the topwater bite is that with the amount of floating grass that's coming here with all this water, it's pushed a lot of grass out. So it's been real difficult to work a topwater, especially in some of these back lakes. There's just so much grass floating in there, big grass pads everywhere. So we kind of stayed away from it. We tried it every once in a while, but not a whole lot of success with that. So we just stuck with what we did well, and that was the smaller profile bait. So water clarity was not bad in a lot of these back lakes, because that grass, one of the things that's an advantage of that, it filters that water pretty well, so it wasn't really beat up. And our winds have been pretty calm for the most part. It's been nice, a 10 to 15 mile an hour wind's been good, so it's very helpful. Of course, when you get in the back lakes, you can really kind of help yourself as well, and because you're protected. So once you get in these protected areas like that and that higher tide and stuff, you're just working, finding the grass, see if you can locate fish. Bait's not been a problem at all. You've got a ton of bait that's working in these areas like that. So again, burner shad, and as far as the mud minnow, twisted tea, white ice has been really good. Bone diamond's been good for us. Those flavors in particular have worked and been very productive. Of course, in the original size, it's pretty much the same flavors. Big Papa, I think we threw it some too as well. It produced well for us. like I say, the Little John, Golden Red Glitter, Kitchen Sink. Those two flavors are my favorite as far as that, especially with the water clarity of what it is. Those baits really stand out for you in these particular areas like that. It's a real darting style bait. But again, big moon in play. We're on the back side of it, transitioning out of that. So you'll start getting into those wild card days here in probably the next 4 or 5 days. So again, that's when you want to have a variety of different kinds of bait, size, style, color, just to see what it is. And again, just keep an eye on what your tides are doing, and consider, just since Alberto, it's gotten super high, and now we're starting to see it recede a little bit. So just make sure that you're looking at that, especially if you're going to run back into some of these back lakes and take advantage of that opportunity. Long Reef Bend, all the way up to Jaybird, all the way down to Spalding. Again, the same thing, man. Working back lakes, mouths, getting out there because of the tremendous amount of water that has pushed in here from that tropical storm Alberto last week has really left tons of water in our area. And that's the same thing that's been up and down the coast because of that. So big, huge outreaching effect from those tropical storms, i.e. hurricanes as well. Hopefully we won't have a super active summer, but it possibly may happen. So it's always, especially now moving forward, it's a good idea to keep an eye on that long-range weather and see what's going on out in the Gulf or the Pacific or the Atlantic, see if anything's creeping up or forming. So that said, again, take advantage of these opportunities. If you're able to be out on the water this past week or this upcoming week, get in these back lakes, man, because when that water really finally drops back out to normal, then things will be back to normal as far as what we're talking about as water-wise. So, but again, these back lakes really light up. You can fish the outside, the edges and stuff, but you really have to hug that grass line. That's where, again, most of our fish that we have caught, I would say 90% of the fish that we have caught this past week have all been pushed up right up into the grass, into the mangroves. Had some opportunities where you had little cuts or little gaps that are in some of the grass patches and some of the mangrove bushes and areas that we're fishing that up into it that normally would just be grass or dry. And but right now, you got thigh deep water that are 50 and 60 yards in on some of these little grass flat edges. So when you work those, just be careful with that and just kind of pay attention to it. A lot of the bait is pushed up in there, and that's where your fish are going to be as well. We get into these back lakes back in here, and there's little back lakes that run all back up into here and toward Vincent Slough and Cedar Bayou. All these back lakes in here that have typically, only poling skiffs and airboats can get to right now. You can just run a regular boat back in here because you got 3 foot of water that's over that area back there. So it really gives you a different opportunity and a perspective when you get to fish some of these areas that you typically would not get to fish. So, and again, with that amount of water that's in play, you still have to take the time to locate and find the fish. It's not like you're just going to get back in there, nope, here they are. So again, that was the thing that's also been the drawback to so much water in here. It scatters them out so much that you really have to work lots of areas to kind of figure out the pattern and what they're fishing against and what they're wanting and where they're at, because they have a lot of places to go now. But again, once you kind of figure out that pattern and what you want to do with it and where these fish are kind of typically holding, then you can go to work on them. Again, big moon was in play this past week. We're on the downside of it now, or the backside of it, headed toward the wild card days. So you really want to continue to throw that smaller profile to start with. Again, 16th ounce jig heads, because there is so much grass, and you really don't want to just let that bait fall down into that grass so quick, if you're throwing an 1/8 ounce or 3/16 or something like that. So the 16th is really sweet spot, and you can really work all that water really well, covering it, looking, trying to find. But again, the burner shad has been our go-to the last several days. It's been the most productive for us, and again, multiple different flavors: firecracker, mud minnow, bone diamond, white ice, big papa, twisted tea have been the main ones that we have thrown color-wise, selection-wise. All that's done really well for us in as far as being consistently finding and catching fish with those particular baits. We snuck in the original size down south in pretty much the same flavors, and it's been pretty well for us. Again, the greenback, heavy metal, and the rogue in the knock and tail have done well for us. We haven't really done in these particular lakes back in here. We really haven't thrown the soft dime of the mirror lure, the Little Johns. Those are pretty much the 3 baits that we have thrown back in these back lakes like that in those particular flavors. The red and gold glitter and the kitchen sink have been the 2 flavors in the mirror lure. But the treble hooks and stuff have caught lots of grass, so we just stuck with the single hooks. That's done well for us, so it's been productive. But again, there's been some days it's taken us time to find and locate fish, even in these areas that are super flooded like that. So again, grass line edges, mangrove edges have been the main focal point for us in finding and locating these fish. Majors and minors have been the main thing in and around that time frame. That minor setting in the morning has been productive for us, and then of course as we got to that noontime phase there, that bite really starts to taper off, so you have to go into that scratch mode or grind mode, so to speak, to pick you out a fish here or there. So again, pay attention to what your tides are doing, because that water will recede. It's starting to recede now. We'll just see how fast it begins to fall out. Woo, up here, Mission Bay, Mission River, Mission Lake, all that, man, this whole past week, goodness gracious, so much water. Again, it changed the whole look of what some of these areas looked like. You just couldn't really tell what was going on. So the little reefs and stuff, they're all out in Mission Bay. They were fishing anywhere from 4 to 5 feet deeper than what they typically do in some of these areas. So we couldn't even wade some of those areas like that, what it was. So we had to get back again with as much water that's pushed back in here. You get back up there in Mission Lake, backside of Mission Bay, just right off of Mission River. So much water that was running off in. Of course, you had that tea stain look that was with it because a lot of fresh water was in there. But the fish are still there. They're just fishing a little deeper. But, just take a peek at it and what was going on. We're fishing right up on the shoreline because of the depth of the water. And so, we'd work Mission Bay for a little bit and get over in Mission Lake a little bit and just see. But, again, back in here it was really difficult just simply because, again, back to the thing of how much water was in play here. Really scattered the fish out of here once upon a time back before the storm had pushed in here. These fish were pretty much not concentrated, but you really could locate them pretty quickly. So when that happens, you have to just kind of have to hang out, man, and just kind of figure it out. So just take a look. So the days that we spent up here in Mission, we really weren't that productive for us just simply because of that matter. So we, worked the shoreline edges, worked the grass line edges, work up in the little mangrove bushes, little islands that are back in here, because a lot of that was just so flooded. It pushed fish that were back up in there. We were catching fish back up in the mangroves itself, either trout or redfish. One that was just like being just a grass patch up there that typically would not have water in it. So it was really unique from that standpoint, but it's just really weird at the same time. Didn't spend any time on the outside edge out here just simply because of what was going on with the water and everything. We could come down here to the Copano Reef. We drifted over that a couple of times, caught a few fish off it, but it wasn't super great. Again, just took us a while to locate fish, man. It just was really difficult. But once we kind of did, again, the key thing that we were throwing the small profile baits. And I always remember that when that big moon is in play, throw that small profile bait to begin with, and then the fish can dictate to you after that what they want. And when that takes place, you just kind of really pay attention to it, because we had a couple of big factors: the big moon, and of course all this water. It was those 2 main factors that was happening. So the fishing was good at times and it was difficult at times. So you just kind of have to play with that and roll with it. Once we kind of got off that and got that kind of figured out where we were going, we stuck with the burner shads, we stuck with the knock and tail, the mirror lure, Little Johns. Those were the 3 things that we threw primarily this past week, and just stuck with that. And it produced for us when it needed to produce for us. Again, the majors and minors were the main things that really focused our time frame as far as really being in the what we would think would be a quality area to find and catch fish was during that moonset minor. And then again, as the day transitioned toward that noontime hour, that bite really would drop off. So it became a scratch game. But if you just stick with it and just understand that some days are going to be that way, you just got to be patient and persevere and work on it and just work with it. And these are different things that take place weather-wise that give us an extreme opportunity to expand our fishing game. So take advantage of that when that kind of stuff happens, don't look at it as a deterrent. Look at it as, hey, this is just going to expand my knowledge and help me fish during this time frame. So the next time that comes around, you kind of have a better idea on how you want to start and where you want to be. So anyway, just a great opportunity is during that time frame. So again, just remember those time things. Again, tides are going to continually drop out on us. It's going to get back to a normalcy here probably in the next few days. And again, we're going to be in the wild card days, so make sure you have a box that's ready to go that's got a bunch of different things in there for you. Again, the 16th ounce jig head is the main thing we've been throwing and focusing on that. Again, we got possibly another little development that may be taking place down there on the Yucatan, so keep your eyeballs on that and see how that develops over the next several days if it does. But it's just something to be aware of as your upcoming week approaches.